Hello folks, welcome back to Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. You know me well enough by now, I hope. This would be the last or the third part of do we really need income tax, personal income tax. Now let's just finish off what we were doing the previous two occasions. It's not just the, kidnapping, the extortion and hawala that is caused by so much black money flying around, but also everything like smuggling, gun running, rioting, including kidnapping and extortion, plus all your frauds, all your what we call 420, i.e. cheating, and so many other things. In fact, everything antisocial is what this is all about. Now, let's get back to the other thing. First, the government has to realize that all these things are caused by black money floating around, including a very big part of it is now fake cash or fake money. Now, we must understand that the larger the amount of fake currency notes floating around, the worse the problem becomes, and the easier for such criminal elements to run rampant. I mean, recently this Musewala murder, it turns out that one of the gangs involved is Lawrence Bishnoi. He has 700 to 800 people in his gang. And this is something we've not heard of before. How many do some of the really big gangs have? You think of the amount of money floating around to finance those people and to keep them going. So it is important to stop this racket. Now what can the government do? The government must understand people do not like being looted. And to them, a high rate of taxation is literally looting. They're not getting anything in return. So why would they pay? And once, of course, all this begins, you know what happens. The whole thing spirals out of control. Now, if it continues to go out of control, what do we want? Absolute anarchy here? Or do we want a state of constant thuggery and brigandry, where there is total lawlessness? I hope we don't want that. The people must also understand that, look, if it expects the government to give it protection, how will it get that protection? The law courts, the legal processes, the police force, paramilitary, defense services and so on. They must get money from somewhere. And if this union is to give you all this protection, you have to pay your union dues. If you don't pay your union dues, how can they operate such defense measures? Now, as a beginning, the first thing the government can do is, instead of such high rates of taxation, make it one rate of taxation for everybody, rich or poor, low income or high income groups. 10%, which is what the present TDS is, meaning tax deducted at source. All salaried people, they have to undergo this. All people who have FDs, 10% is deducted, that will be your taxation. Let 10% of that TDS be your tax due. People don't mind paying it, it is seamless, nobody really feels the pinch. So, once you do that, people are at peace. They have more money in their hands. And if they have more money, they spend on consumer goods, which means all consumer goods get a boost, a big boost. They manufacture much more. And if they manufacture more, the government tax collection goes up because they're producing a much higher turnover of goods. Not just in terms of cash or money, but also in terms of the number of units produced. And that is what needs to go up. Because until that consumer industry gets that boost. Things are not going to happen all that well. Government is not going to increase its tax collection except by increasing the rate of taxes. Let us also remember one other thing, and the government must understand this. GST is a very good thing, provided all other taxes are repealed. You cannot have GST working alongside VAT and service tax. This is because even GST today is not a small amount. If the government says 10% GST, it is actually 20%, because 10% the central government takes and the state government charges another 10% for its share. So the government must also understand this is pure and simple over-taxation. There are certain items which are charged at 29% GST, which in effect is not 29% but 58%, because 29% central government, 29% state government, which is a huge amount. Now, if those or such levels of tax are applied, all you're doing is pricing your goods out of the market. Fewer people will buy. And if fewer people will buy, your tax collection goes down, not up. So please, government, understand this. When you do and when you've understood this, we stand a better chance. Now, apart from this 10%, there is a slightly different way. Instead of charging 10% from individuals, why not 10% of every company? 10% of turnover. Not 10% of profits, but 10% of your total turnover. Because you see, even here, GST is applicable, and it's applied not at one place but 2 or 3 different places on the same product. So again, government has to be careful. Do not overtax. We talk about no double taxation agreement with different countries. What about within our country? Why do we have to pay the same tax 2 or 3 times? You don't believe it? Let me explain. Something is manufactured at a factory. Say soap. Your bar of Lux or Palm Olive or what have you. The tallow or the oil has to be bought. If it is imported, there is an excise duty on it or import duty. And when you buy it and bring it to your plant, you have already paid GST and margin. The paper, both the plain paper and the plastic coated paper, that has to be brought to your plant. Again, GST and margin has been paid. The perfume that goes into it, again, GST and margin has been paid, and it comes to the factory. Then the whole thing is manufactured, packed, and when it leaves the plant to go to the state distributor, GST and margin, the state distributor charges, again has to pay GST and margin before it goes to the next man, the district level distributor. And when he sends it to his dealers, again GST and margin is charged. Now it's already 1, 2, 3, 4 places, and the 5th place is where the consumer gets it from. So 4 times that GST has been charged. Now you understand over-taxation. This is known as overkill. Now if you continue with this, how can the public feel safe? How can they feel that, no, look, I'm working and I'm getting something out of it? Are they? So the other way is not just 10% of every employee. Instead of the accounting being done by each individual, there the company is doing it. But what do? Supposing the company is made to pay all of the turnover, 10% of it. When it leaves whatever it is making, and it leaves and goes outside, All that has already been charged at 10% of turnover. That includes all your staff, your vehicle, your transport, your raw materials, everything. You get 10% of that, which is not a small amount. It also means that every employee who is paid from that company, he doesn't have anything to worry about now. All taxes have been paid, he doesn't have to pay anything at all. What he gets as salary, he keeps. Now it goes straight into his bank account. We must ensure that it doesn't go straight into his hand as cash. It must go into his bank account. Why? There's a record of it somewhere. Now once this has been paid, this particular system has one or two other advantages. All shell companies will now have to pay tax because it's not on profits, it's on turnover. Now shell companies are there to avoid payment of tax. They don't do anything, they don't produce anything. They're just there to show expenditure. Well, if you show expenditure, you pay a tax on it. Like it or not, if you don't like it, don't do it. Shut them up. We don't need them. They are a waste of time. Plus, 85, maybe 90% of all foreign companies that come in to do business in India come through tax havens. Mauritius, Seychelles, Cyprus, St. Kitts, maybe Cayman Islands, you name it. Now why did these tax havens come in? It goes back again to the same thing. People do not like paying too much tax. A certain amount they know is necessary. They can't get away from it. But do remember, there is a certain line. You cross that line and they revolt. That is why they've gone from their parent countries to tax havens, to save on tax. And they come here through those tax havens because they know we have an agreement with those countries to avoid double taxation. They pay tax either in India or in that other country. And if taxes there are much lower, why won't they operate out of there? Now, once they operate in India now, they should be made to pay that turnover tax. Why? If they expect protection and from this government, if they expect infrastructure, they expect to make money out of here, they must pay their dues to help create and maintain that infrastructure. Otherwise, why are they here? Plus, if they don't pay taxes here, Indian companies are at a big disadvantage because Indian companies have to pay Indian taxes, which are much higher than Mauritian taxes. They're already at a big disadvantage. Now to give them an even playing field, you come here, you work in this country, you pay your taxes like anybody else. You don't like it, don't come here. Not only will this give Indian companies a level playing field, but if foreign companies start creating, no, it's too much too high, Indian companies can learn and take over from them. But please don't learn their bad habits. Try learning their good habits. So you see, 10% of turnover is not that bad because it's a company which already has the infrastructure to collect and deposit those taxes. They are doing all this. The individual doesn't have to do anything. There were one or two very good examples of this. For instance, in the 1990s, with Manmohan Singh as finance minister, not prime minister, finance minister, he brought in these RBI relief bonds, 9% tax-free. Now, it is not that tax-free if you think, because it's like giving you 12% and holding back 3% as tax. So it's not a question of tax evasion. Plus, you don't have to go around collecting pieces of paper. You've already got the counterfoil with your draft. You just put it in and you hand it to your tax people. Now, This is something very, very nice. If it comes back, and of course, the UPA government with who was the finance minister? Was it Mr. Chidambaram? He repealed this. I mean, it didn't make sense then, it still doesn't make sense. Why? Because this was like a PPF, a public provident fund. That used to give 9%, this was giving 9%. That was free of tax, the interest I mean, this is free of tax. So why was there such a hassle? And see, the government must also understand. You're not giving the public anything, it's their money in the first place. By giving these, how should I put it, SOPs, and by reducing the amount of tax collected and reducing the running around which the public has to do to get these pieces of paper, you're also reducing the need for so many tax officials. How much do you save there? The buildings, the equipment, the record rooms, the records you have to keep, the people who you have to employ, and so on. And if they're corrupt, the system breaks down anyway. Because tax cases keep going on for 20 or 30 years. Does that make any sense? I don't think so. It's not necessary. Why do we do it? Now, why, for instance, did you do away with that? Why did they repeal this relief bond? It's such a huge source of income, just like your PPF and your Employees Provident Fund. Huge source of funds at a relatively low interest rate. The government needed that money, it still needs it. So why do you throw up at it? Is it because the principal has to be repaid? Now another example was, again, Manmohan Singh, he came out with this. People sold property to enhance their businesses, for helping in expansion of business premises, maybe even for diversification and so on. What happened was, you put it into certain things like NABARD, you got 6% which was liable for income tax, but your capital, you retained 100% of it. The result was, people in property deals were accepting up to 95% check or account or white money. Along comes the UPA government and scraps that and says you could only put 50 lakhs in certain things like NHI or something like this. The rest of it, you have to pay 20.6% capital gains tax. The result, people went back to 70% cash, 30% check. Added to that, local agencies, they increased the circle rates to such a level, the market rates were lower than circle rates. You had to register the sale of that property or purchase of that property at a higher rate than what you paid for it. Does that make sense? No. But this is the silly state of affairs. People have to understand. And government, we hope, consists of people. They must understand that you can't go around doing this. You have to encourage industry to expand, to produce much more, to manufacture more, to increase your tax collection not by increasing the rate, but by increasing the turnover. The turnover meaning not in monetary terms, but also in terms of the number of units of production. Unless you do that, you go back to the old license Raj, which says you produce only a fixed number and you keep increasing the amounts. I mean, an accountant or two I've come across, they say, we raise the price for each client 10% every year. I said, why? He said, inflation. I said, you're causing inflation. And it's following you up. And you're making me get into that vortex too. Similarly with farmers, they have to understand this too. If you keep raising the minimum support price or MSP every year, that's inflation. The farmer may get 10,000 rupees, but his expenses go up 50,000 every year. Is that a help to him? Not really. So please, let's rationalize a little. Please, government, understand that put more money into the hands of the people, real money, so that if they buy consumer goods or essential items, okay, well, fair and good, fair and well. Good for them, because it gives the consumer or whatever industry they buy, whatever product they buy, it gives that industry a big boost. Production goes up and the government's tax collection goes up. Because I'm pretty certain by far the greatest amount comes in not from direct taxes like personal income tax, but from indirect taxes. Let's also remember there's only one death certainty in life. You'll never get out of it alive. And as long as you're alive, you'll be paying those taxes. Because the other side of that coin is there are two death certainties in life, death and taxes. You can't get away from these two, no matter where you go. Not even in tax havens. Okay, make India a tax haven. What's wrong with that? I mean, most of these companies and concerns and so on keep going in and coming here via tax havens. Make this a tax haven. Make it like Jersey or Guernsey or most of these other places, 10%, that's it. Anybody who tries to avoid that, give him living hell. Set an example. Just like, I think, UP, any rioters, they get living hell. They have to make up any damages, plus they pay for causing that disruption. Whatever you do was rather silly, you mess around, there is a price to be paid. You don't like the price paying the price, don't do it. Stay home, stay quiet, behave yourselves. If the government wants you to pay only 10%, so be it. But make sure you pay. Don't try avoiding that, and don't try having a second set of books. Okay? You have to cooperate with the government, and the government must cooperate with the public. You've got to go together. If you don't, and this whole system breaks down, otherwise all your other failings begin to come to the surface. Because those are the diversionary tactics to take your mind away from your real problems. I think we've been doing that for 70 odd years. It's about time we stopped that and started getting to grips with the real problems. We've got to start understanding one another and get to know one another and work with one another. Thank you, folks. I hope you like it, but please subscribe, pass on to others, pass on to your groups, ask them to send it on further to your friends, relatives, you name it. This is an important subject. People have to get together. We can't go on like this anymore. Let us remember this 10% of turnover. Nobody is exempt. Not NGOs, nobody. Everybody should come under this. Second, and this is very important, do not take away the incentive to work from people at large. Don't stop them, don't stifle them. Think of how many people of Indian origin are working abroad who are CEOs of giant corporations. What could they have generated here in this country? And they're abroad because they weren't allowed to do anything here. Let us also remember that according to the Economic Times, dollar millionaires, people who become dollar millionaires in India, are migrated because they're being kicked around. They don't like it. They're being overtaxed. Why don't you try retaining them here to do things here? Now, all this we must understand. Don't take away the incentive from a man, the incentive to work. If you take that away, what do we have left? But a whole lot of gormless zombies who fit for nothing. You take any industry, if there's overtaxation or overpricing, you're pricing yourself out of the market. If you do that, why are you here in the first place? Okay, bye.